Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. Tonight we'll have all your international, national, and local news. I'm Gavin Petrone.
And I'm Annabella Gizzi. Donald Trump has officially become president-elect, and now people across the world and locally are reacting. We'll have the details of those reactions and what Trump plans to do in his administration tonight.
Plus, stay tuned to hear about various natural disasters hitting home and abroad and how nations are preparing and responding to these catastrophic crises.
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
With Trump confirmed as the prospective 47th President of the United States, U.S. trade, military, and climate policy, all major international issues, look uncertain under his second administration. During a UN climate summit on Monday, the U.S. and its allies sought to reassure delegates that global efforts to mitigate climate change will not be shaken up by another Trump presidency. Trump's last term saw the U.S. leave the 2015 Paris Climate Accord and reduce its efforts to cut domestic carbon emissions while he was in office. He also frequently called climate change a, quote, hoax, end quote. Still, John Podesta, the Biden administration's chief climate diplomat, says a Trump presidency is no cause for concern. Quote, facts are still facts. Science is still science. This fight is bigger than one election, one political cycle in one country, end quote. Trade and military aid to allies have also come under redress with Trump, as rumors continue to float that his administration may make an effort to leave NATO, the Cold War-era Northern European military pact that saw the fall of the Soviet Union. To leave NATO, Trump would need to claim presidential authority over foreign affairs, something that can be easily contested in court. Aid to Ukraine and Israel in their respective conflicts is also questionable. Both Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky congratulated Trump on his victory last Tuesday. While his relationship with Israel has always been strong, his approach to Ukraine remains uncertain. Trump claimed he would end the conflict before he entered office, but that has yet to come into fruition. Russian President Vladimir Putin waited until the Friday after Election Day to congratulate Trump, and Chinese President Xi Jinping has yet to do so.
This past week, an American tourist went missing and was eventually killed in Hungary. Police report that murder suspect was arrested this past Friday. According to the Budapest police, a 31-year-old American tourist went missing after being seen at a nightclub on Tuesday. When the search advanced for her, investigators identified a man she was seen several times throughout the night. The suspect was a 37-year-old Irish citizen, was arrested and allegedly confessed to killing the American, along with showing the police where he had hidden her body. Investigators then revealed more details about the murder during a news conference on Saturday. As previously mentioned, Mikowski and the suspect met at a nightclub, but then it was released that they went to the suspect's rented apartment, and he allegedly killed her there. The suspect then tried to cover up the murder. He cleaned out his apartment and hid the woman's body in the wardrobe cabinet while he went out to buy a suitcase. He then allegedly put the suitcase in the trunk of his car and drove to the Lake Balaton, said the police. He hid the victim in the woods outside Siglaget. As police investigated the perpetrator, they found he made suspicious internet searches such as, quote, do pigs really eat dead bodies? And Texas woman killed by a wild boar, end quote. Earlier, friends of Kenzie reported her missing to the U.S. Embassy after missing her flight and not being at the Airbnb. Her friends and family thanked the U.S. and Hungarian authorities for their, quote, prompt attention and diligence, care, and consideration, end quote. A statement was posted by her loved ones, quote, we are thankful that Kenzie's soul is now at peace. The statement said, her memory and legacy will endure in the hearts of all whom she touched. To understand Kenzie's spirit is to wholeheartedly embrace the vast joy and wonder of her life. Her wish for the world, fully embrace the present moment, be your authentic self, practice kindness, and always walk in the light, end quote. From a stabbing in the apartment complex to a new phase of construction beginning, Toronto, Canada is seeing a whirlwind of events this week. NewsNight reporter Christiana Cates has the most recent updates on what's been going on in our northern neighbor. Christiana?
A man was stabbed and killed at an apartment complex in Toronto. It happened around 6 o'clock in the morning last Tuesday along the intersection of Lawrence Avenue East and Kingston Road in the neighborhood of Scarborough. When Toronto police were called to the scene, they found the victim stabbed on the 10th floor in his apartment, where he was pronounced dead on the scene. Police took the 3 suspects into custody, 2 women and a man who was later identified as 55-year-old Michael Curry from Toronto. This comes after the area has seen a spike in crime, and some residents of the housing complex are concerned as the police are frequently called there. In November of 2018, there was a fatal shooting at the complex in the stairwell. And in 2023, there was a fire that left 1 person dead in a unit on the 5th floor. So far, the suspect, Michael Curry, is charged with second-degree murder, while the identities of the other 2 suspects have not been revealed by police. And some more news out of Canada. If you're commuting to and from different areas in the city, then you've most likely used the Gardiner Expressway at some point. While it's undergone its fair share of construction, Phase 2 has started earlier than expected. It's 4 months ahead of schedule, and that means the project will be completed a year early. 140,000 commuters take the Gardiner Expressway every day, and as the Ontario Minister of Transportation says, commuters have ran into constant gridlocks or traffic jams because of construction. As of November 7th, 2 eastbound lanes on the Gardiner have reopened, and the center lanes will start having construction before Phase 3 begins on the westbound lanes. Once construction is completed, it's estimated that commuters will save up to 22 minutes per trip.
This past Sunday, the Philippines Interior Secretary ordered a mandatory evacuation for residents of thousands of villages in preparation for Typhoon Toraji. The typhoon hit Monday on the agricultural parts of the Philippines. The Philippines frequently experiences typhoons and other tropical storms. This typhoon, though, caused winds that reached 81 miles per hour, making it a living hazard. The country is currently receiving aid from many countries in Southeastern Asia, as well as the U.S. Qatar, a nation who's been hands-on with the conflict in Israel, is taking a step back, and a Category 3 hurricane left the nation of Cuba in disarray. Our reporter Gabriella Waite has the details on both of these stories. Gabby?
On November 9th, Qatar paused its efforts acting as a mediator between Israel and Hamas. The relation for Qatar's pause is because Foreign Minister believes that Israel and Hamas are not taking the war in Gaza seriously. Qatar officials told Hamas political leaders that they were no longer welcome in the country. Qatar officials said that they will resume helping Hamas and Israel when, quote, Qatar will resume our efforts with its partners when the parties show willingness and seriousness to end the brutal war in Gaza, end quote. Media reports about the Hamas office in Doha explained that they are no longer serve their purpose because of the stalled negotiations. However, Foreign Ministry Al-Aznar said that the media reports about Hamas office were, quote, inaccurate, end quote. Al-Aznar explained that the main reason for the stall in negotiations is because Qatar wants to see, quote, the main goal is to channel the communication between its concerned parties, and the channel has contributed to achieving ceasefire, end quote. Qatar's main hope in doing so is to bring peace to the people in Gaza, ending the war between Israel and Hamas, and releasing the hostages that are trapped in Gaza still currently. In a more disastrous news, on the 7th of November, Cuba suffered a Category 3 hurricane, destroying hundreds of homes and knocking out country's power grid. More than 461 homes have been reported to have collapsed, while 2,083 people across Cuba have been evacuated from the area of where the hurricane has hit. The community of Havana has been the hardest, where a majority of the blackouts are located. For the community of Havana, the biggest worries include debris like trees and telephone lines that are blocking the road, making travel difficult. There are also great concerns from the community about the food going bad due to the blackouts, which has led up to group and residents opening a informal soup kitchen. Residents Ariel Cavo said, quote, if we don't help and work together as neighbors, nobody does it, end quote. The electricity director for Cuba is now currently giving priority to restoring Havana's electricity, and reportedly they have set up generators currently to give people partial electrical while they are working on restoring power permanently.
Thank you, Gabby. The head of the Church of England, Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, resigned from his position on Tuesday after outrage over his part in a sexual abuse scandal. This comes after an investigation conducted by the Independent Inquiry found that Welby failed to report church leader John Smith to authorities, even after the church knew of his psychological and sexual abuse over 100 boys. Welby said in a statement, quote, I must take personal and institutional responsibility for the long and traumatizing period between 2013 and 2024, end quote. The church is now currently in the process of selecting a new archbishop. When we return, we'll have the details on a recent shooting that took place at a university. Plus, stay tuned to hear about the best times to purchase flights for the upcoming holiday. We'll be right back.
Southern California's Ventura County has been ravaged by mountain wildfires since last Wednesday. California's Department of Forestry and Fire Protection said the fire is currently about 48% contained and has destroyed at least 207 structures and injured 6 people. One of the people injured was a firefighter, and the other 5 are civilians. As of reporting on Tuesday, the mountain fire has burned over 20,000 acres of Ventura County. The cause of the blaze is still under investigation. Almost 2,400 firefighters have been assigned to fight the fire. They said on Tuesday that activity has slowed down and that predicted winds did not materialize to spread the fire more. According to the Ventura County Fire Department, the mountain fire initially broke out in the Moore Park area and grew from about 25 to 1,000 acres within an hour. Governor Gavin Newsom announced federal funding to aid the fight against the mountain fire, while over 10,000 people were forced to evacuate from their homes. The affected area saw 2 other fires back in 2019, named South and Maria, that collectively burned about half of the area now scorched by mountain fire. The California Air Resources Board said that wildfires have been an issue in the state since 1950. They have increasingly grown in size every year thanks to climate change caused by fossil fuel emissions. The East Coast also saw an influx of wildfire warnings. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island are all under red flag warnings due to dry and windy conditions from a historical drought. The National Weather Service in Boston urged people to avoid burning outdoors and to ensure proper disposal of items that might produce sparks like cigarettes and lighters.
With just 15 days until Thanksgiving, now is the time to book any last-minute holiday flights. Brian Kelly, the CEO and founder of The Points Guy, told Good Morning America on Friday that, quote, "The good news is there are a lot of deals this year, especially internationally. It's probably going to be the busiest holiday travel season ever. We were up 9% going into the month, and since the election, we've seen a huge spike in interest," end quote. Kelly noted that during Thanksgiving week, quote, "Wednesday through Sunday will be the most expensive time to travel," end quote. Kelly suggests a ton of deals and places that you can go this holiday season, starting with deals on flights to the Cayman Islands starting as low as $330 from New York City. He also mentioned, quote, "If you want to go further, I love Japan, and Tokyo is an amazing year-round destination. November and December can be a little chilly, so just pack a coat," end quote. Flights from Charlotte to Tokyo start at $700.76 round trip on Delta Airlines, which is a huge price drop, nearly 34%. ABC News reports that Kelly also said for those who think they've missed the window on finding affordable travel prices, quote, "Deals are out there. Don't assume all is lost less than 3 weeks away," end quote. More of the popular airlines, JetBlue and Southwest, both have flights from Denver to Boston for under $200, which is 57% down from prices around this time last year. Kelly recommends users use the Google Flights Explore map. Without choosing a destination, you can choose a departure city by clicking Explore Destinations from the Google Flights webpage on a computer. The finest pricing for locations worldwide can then be shown by zooming out on the map. Without choosing a destination, you can choose a departure city by clicking Explore Destinations from the Google Flights webpage on a computer. The finest pricing for locations worldwide can then be shown by zooming out on the map.
This past Sunday, a shooting took place at Tuskegee University in Alabama. One person died and 16 others were injured as a result. The person who died was not a student, but some of the injured were. Jaquez Myrick was seen leaving the scene of the shooting and taken into custody. While in custody, he was found to have a gun and a gun conversion device on him. He is currently facing federal charges of possession of a machine gun. The police released no further information, but the FBI is currently involved in seeking public help. Anonymous hate texts are making their way into the messages of many across the United States. Reporter Ruthie Light has the details on the messages and the actions taken by authorities on the matter. Ruthie?
Thanks, Gavin. Following the election, people of color all over America are receiving discriminatory text messages from anonymous numbers. Black children, college students, and working professionals have fallen victim to the attack in over 30 states across the country. The racist text messages that have been received often reference slavery, telling their targets that they were, quote, selected to pick cotton at the nearest plantation, end quote. Although authorities are currently unable to tell who is behind the hateful messages, a majority of them seem to have been sent through the app TextNow in what appears to be a widespread attack. People across the country, along with various industry professionals, suspect the attacks to be in correspondence with the recent election, reflecting the United States' bigoted past. According to NAACP CEO Derek Johnson, quote, these messages represent an alarming increase in vile and abhorrent rhetoric from racist groups across the country who now feel emboldened to spread hate and stoke the flames or fear that many of us are feeling after Tuesday's election results, end quote. Currently, the FBI is aware of the hateful messages and are working hard with the Justice Department and other authorities on the matter, hoping to soon be able to put an end to the injustice people of color are facing. Back to you, Annabella.
Thank you, Ruthie. This past Tuesday, Donald Trump announced the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, an outside organization that will look to, quote, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies, end quote. The agency will be led by former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy and ex-CEO Elon Musk. The acronym for the department, DOGE, is a reference to the cryptocurrency Dogecoin, a favorite of Elon Musk. Ramaswamy and Musk will not be considered federal employees, and currently it is unknown how the department will operate. Coming up after the break, a group of protesters gathered at Point State Park this past week. We'll have the details on what brought the group together. Plus, a beloved Pittsburgh anchor says goodbye after a 4-decade-long career. Find out who when we return.
Pittsburgh Mayor Ed Gainey announced the city's tentative budget of $665 million for 2025 on Tuesday. Gainey previously announced a preliminary budget of $657 million in September. That budget was widely criticized for reducing the city's overall budget by $27 million. The new budget still cuts $19 million, 3% of last year's budget, and includes no tax hikes, layoffs, or cuts to city services. Gainey hopes to cover the reduced budget by lowering city spending overall. Gainey cut the budgeted number of police officers from 850 to 800. Most officials argue that 900 is the force's ideal number, but it currently only employs 750 uniformed officers. Gainey also cut both police and firefighters' overtime pay from this year's $17 million to $15 million and $16.5 million, respectively. The Police Bureau is expected to exceed this year's allotted overtime budget by $1 to $2 million. The city's legal judgment and public safety vehicle budget both also received cuts. Always hopeful, Gainey said that his budget operates assuming downtown will be the city's main driver of revenue. Gainey projects that the city will bring in $668 million in revenue next year, a number that critics say is over-exaggerated. They cite declining property value downtown and minuscule leftover COVID relief money as evidence. Gainey is gunning for more affordable housing downtown to make up for this, along with Governor Josh Shapiro's previously announced $600 million 10-year downtown revitalization effort. Gainey proposed a zoning overhaul to bring the price of housing down. It legalizes accessory dwelling units, reduces minimum lot requirements, and requires developers to designate 10% of their housing units as, quote, affordable, unquote.
On November 8th, dozens of protesters gathered at Point State Park to protest the president-elect Donald Trump. WPXI News reports that they talked to a handful of the protesters, and they said that they are scared now that Trump has won the election, and that he will begin to act on some of the policies he held closely to his campaign. Examples being restricting reproductive rights for women and mass deportation. Allegheny County Council member Bethany Hallam spoke at the rally and motivated them not to accept the status quo. She said that the Democratic Party has a lot of work to do before midterm elections. Hallam said, quote, "I hope we learn from this. I hope that we don't lose more of our Democratic Party base, but instead we bring in people in," end quote. Steve Capri, an organizer with the Socialist Alternative Group, said in an interview with WPXI, quote, "Grassroots organizations have hosted rallies in Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, and now Pittsburgh," end quote. One of the demonstrators spoke out and said, quote, I fear for women's health, for their actual lives. I mean, people need to have access to this health care. It's hard. I really feel for people, like I can feel their fear. And if I can do one small part and put a face to what people are feeling, I am okay with that," end quote.
Point Park is holding its annual Day of Giving event this Thursday, November 12th. Day of Giving is a chance for any Point Park alumni to donate to the school and contribute to continuing education. Along with collecting donations, a day of events have been scheduled for alumni and current students alike. The day's events entail coffee and donuts with the president, live performances from Pioneer Records, an opportunity to pie professor, provost, or president, and more. If you're interested in donating, you can designate your funds to a specific school or area of the university, like student media. If you are a member of UView or any organization at Point Park, please consider donating to that school so they can continue carrying on Point Park's name. A jury recently made a decision on a suspect of a drive-by shooting. Our reporter Ruthie Light has the verdict. Ruthie?
Thanks, Gavin. After nearly 2 years since a drive-by shooting between a Westmoreland County man and an apparent slow driver, justice has finally been served. This past Friday, 29-year-old Anthony Hairston was convicted before a jury of third-degree murder, tampering with drug and firearm offenses in the 2022 death of 59-year-old Holly Videla. The jury heard 3 days' worth of testimony and carefully studied the case for over 2 hours before eventually delivering their guilty verdict. On New Year's Eve of 2022, Hairston became frustrated at the driver in front of him for driving slowly as he was trying to make his way to a bar in Rosh River before it closed. He then fired 2 rounds of ammunition as he passed Videla in his car, shooting and killing her. According to a criminal complaint, Hairston drove away after shooting his victim and appeared at the bar minutes later. Since Vidella's unfortunate passing, California University of Pennsylvania has released a statement saying she had been a clerk typist for 10 years and was a valued member of the school's family. Hairston will be receiving his official sentence in 3 months. Back to you, Annabella.
Thank you, Ruthie. WPXI TV veteran news anchor David Johnson retires after a 4-decade run for Channel 11. His retirement is effective on December 13th this year. During his 40-year tenure, he achieved an Emmy Award and multiple Pittsburgh Press Golden Quill Awards for his work at WPXI. Johnson also made Pittsburgh TV history for being a part of the longest-running anchor team alongside Peggy Finnegan, who retired in 2020. He ends his career with the sentiment, quote, "I would say to his viewers and to the Pittsburgh market as a whole, I'm extremely grateful for their support and their viewership. It's meant the world to me," end quote. Wildfires are not a new natural disaster, but with the recent concerns around wildfires nationwide, scientists are coming up with some curious and cute ways to help revitalize a scorched ecosystem. We'll have the details when we return.
Take them cue and open their mics.
Today marked the 1-year anniversary of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette strike.
Point Park University just hosted a campus-wide meeting.
Plans for the rapid transit bus line are not set to conclude until 2025.
Scientists have theorized that gophers could bring back life to a scorched ecosystem, and they were proven right. Gophers, an animal known for digging and distributing the soil, piqued the interest of scientists as their lifestyle could bring beneficial bacteria and fungi to the surface of desolate areas. After an eruption from Mount St. Helens in 1980 that eviscerated the local environment, they imposed a 24-hour experiment. After revisiting in 2024, they saw a massive boost in plant life. UCR microbiologist Michael Allen stated, quote, "In the 1980s, we were just testing the short-term reaction. Who would have predicted you could toss a gopher in for a day and see a residual effect 40 years later," end quote. This has now paved the way for revitalization efforts in distressed ecosystems. Although the leaves are already falling off the trees, autumn isn't over yet. First-time weather reporter Ethan Rowinski is here to give you a fall weather update. Ethan?
Thanks, Gavin. It's about time to dig out all of your thick sweaters and heavy coats because it is beginning to feel quite chilly in Pittsburgh. Starting tomorrow, the temperature is going to be in the mid to high 40s throughout the day and drop down to the low 40s overnight. Additionally, various periods of rain are expected throughout the day with a probability reaching 91% chance of precipitation. Although the weather for tomorrow seems dreary and cold, the rain is a much needed due to the recent dry conditions the Pittsburgh region has been seeing. Now, let's take a look at the rest of the week. Over the weekend, the temperature is expected to go up to the high 50s, and as the days go on, more and more sunshine is expected to peek out from behind the clouds. By the beginning of next week, the temperature will reach the low 60s and we'll be seeing mostly sunny days. Be sure to soak up some sunshine and beautiful fall weather in between your classes. It's going to be a chilly but beautiful week. Now, let's send it back to the desk.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television.
You can also check out more episodes on our YouTube channel or website, uview.pointpark.edu. I'm Annabella Gizzi.
And I'm Gavin Petrone. From everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.